Teacher, what's natural selection?
Well, that is what we're going to talk about today. I'm Tyler Stinchcomb, and to start this journey off, I went around town to see what others think natural selection is.
What is natural selection?
Natural selection is when you randomly select something. No?
What is natural selection?
I don't know.
That's it?
Yep.
Natural selection is the selection of species being ruled out because they're so.
Alright, so just like what I thought, most people don't really know exactly what natural selection is because it's actually a topic that has a lot of explaining to do. Now most people do know what evolution is to an extent. So I quickly checked to see what Google says natural selection is. And Google, I have it on my phone, defines it as the process whereby organisms better adapted to their environment tend to survive and produce more offspring, which the theory is was designed by Charles Darwin, which we will talk about in just a second. But I do want to clarify in just quick terms that natural selection is just the process of evolution of how a species by individuals through variations have evolved over time by adaptations. Sorry, pronouncing.
So before we talk about anything else having to do with natural selection, we have to talk about the man himself, Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was born in 1809 in the United Kingdom and died in 1882. He was an English geologist and naturalist, best known for his contributions to evolution. He published his findings in the book On the Origin of Species in 1859. This book is nearly 500 pages long and collects his findings and observations that he collected from over 20 to 30 years. This is where he published his thoughts on natural selection. And one of the first things that he points out is variation among species. So this is basically what he points out is that natural selection can only occur if there is a variation amongst members of the same species. So this is common in humans, where we can see this in height and in skin color, but sometimes this is harder to see in other species. But basically the whole thing is that if all individuals in a population were identical, there would be no way for some individuals to be favored by natural selection more than others. So there are three ways that variation can occur, and this one is through mutation, which is like new alleles are produced by gene mutation, growing the gene pool of a population. Then there is meiosis, which produces new combination of alleles by breaking up existing combination in cells. And lastly, there's sexual reproduction, which leads to a combination of genes from two individuals, allowing mutations to occur from both individuals. So all these put together allow variations to occur among species.
Another thing about natural selection I want to talk about is adaptations. Adaptations are characteristics that make an individual more suited for its environment. This term is used for the development of characteristics over time as well, which leads to the evolution of the species. Now, one thing to keep in mind for adaptations is that they do not happen over one specific lifetime. Adaptations are due to natural selection, so that means that it happens over time. It's a heritable trait. So the adaptations aren't made to suit one individual suited for its environment, but as a whole species. Alright, I'm here at the zoo and we're talking about adaptations, and my hand's a little shaky. This is a turkey vulture. There's two of them in this awesome exhibit. And these guys are great animals to talk about adaptations. They have two that I want to talk about right now that's really cool. As you can see, they have a naked head. These guys are scavengers. They'll stick their heads right in to carry on dead animals. And what's the point of having feathers on your head if they're just going to get dirty and get meat and gross stuff in it and eventually cause disease and stuff? So, what the turkey vulture has evolved over time through natural selection, has adapted with his lifestyle of eating to have a naked head.
Another thing awesome about these guys is their sense of smell is incredible. These guys can smell like across an entire forest almost. That's how they find their prey and stuff. Another great example of adaptations is the black bear. So these guys live all over North America and in a variety of different habitats, and that's because they've adapted to eat almost anything. They're omnivores, so they can eat fruits and berries and meat and fish. So that's one adaptation that's really allowed them to survive and thrive. And another one that's really unique and cool, lots of bears do this, is hibernation. So what these guys do in wintertime is that their metabolism slows down and they're able to breathe, and their body's able to give them just enough energy, and their body temperature really drops, but just enough so that they can survive and live through the winter season with basically no food, which is a really neat adaptation for living way up north. Another thing that Darwin observed was what he called struggle for existence. See, Darwin saw that some species tend to produce more offspring than the environment can hold. This means that there's competition between individuals for resources to survive and reproduce. So that means not every individual will be able to get all the resources it needs to survive. This ties in directly towards inheritance, meaning that only the individuals that have adapted, that are better adapted, will survive and produce more than those that are not well adapted, and they will just die or produce fewer. Individuals pass on heritable traits to their offspring, and well-adapted ones then pass on their heritable traits to their offspring. Then this also ties into what I just talked about at the beginning, meaning the variations, and this is all how natural selection works. It's awesome. So another thing at the zoo that I want to talk about is modes of selection. Now, there's directional selection and stabilizing selection that I want to talk about right now. And a really good example for this is the giraffe. However, they are not out because it's way too cold. But real quickly, basically, for like the giraffe was a really good example for this. Directional selection made giraffes with short necks, like just not be able to get the food because the dry seasons, the wet seasons, all the good leaves are up top. So giraffes started to develop long necks, and longer the neck, then that was the selection. That's how we know giraffes as having the long necks, and there's no giraffe with short necks. And also, stabilizing selection enables it so it's not too much, because there could be giraffes that have like 30-foot long necks, but why? There's no need. The trees aren't even that big in Africa. So that's why there's directional and stabilizing selection, because the stabilizing selection just lets the middle, because the middle neck size is perfect. So another type of selection is artificial selection, which is basically made off of humans, which is where we get our domesticated animals and dogs, because all dogs are from the gray wolf. Another mode of selection is sexual selection, and basically that's how the men get the ladies. And they usually do this in two ways. Either they look really, really beautiful and are able to attract the ladies by their colors, or they are super aggressive and just beat each other up for the girls. Well, I found a male peacock, and their beautiful colors will attract their mates. Ones with less attractive, big like feathers that they have will not get the ladies, and the ones that do will get the ladies, and that's how sexual selection works. Alright, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope this video was really helpful to learn about natural selection. I hope you guys have an awesome day. Hit the like button, and one more thing.